Of all the video games to release throughout 2025, I feel like the hype for Battlefield 6 has been pretty unique in terms of just how widespread and large scale it was. Tons of people who had never played Battlefield before were purchasing Battlefield 6. People who have been historically longtime Call of Duty fans were switching over to Battlefield. Battlefield fans who were feeling a little bit let down after the 2042 release came back with Battlefield 6 to the franchise. So obviously this has been a very big moment for Battlefield, and we already knew that Battlefield 6 has sold a lot of copies. We knew that from pre-orders on Steam alone up to a certain point from the records that were being tracked, that it had sold over 2 million in pre-orders. We also know that Battlefield 6 broke launch records for the franchise, but we actually finally got a pretty full look at just how much this actually meant in terms of sales figures, in terms of comparisons to the genre itself and other video games in general that have released not just in 2025 but the past couple of years. So Battlefield 6 has been a really big moment for the franchise, for DICE, for EA, these sorts of things, and it's pretty crazy to see Battlefield making this sort of comeback after 2042. Battlefield 2042 itself was a pretty hyped up game. I do remember when it was being announced, seeing all the trailers. I had been actually initially really excited for it, but then when the open beta came around, that excitement pretty much dwindled across the board, and we saw that the launch was less than spectacular in all aspects pretty much. But Battlefield 6, the open beta was solid, the launch has been solid, and honestly, despite any issues that have been going on with this game, I can't really say that this game is boring or I'm not enjoying it. Overall, this has been one of my favorite FPS games I've played in maybe years, to be honest. So it's been a pretty big moment for the franchise, and that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. So before we do that, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications set to all so you can stay up to date with all the Battlefield 6 content here on the channel, and let's just dive right on into it. So Battlefield 6 has been a huge success for Battlefield as a franchise, as a name. Pretty much all the people that I have seen talking about games this year have been talking about Battlefield. People I know are talking about Battlefield. It's been really big. So obviously with all of this, it's natural to be curious about just how much Battlefield broke in terms of records. We know that on the first day of being live, Battlefield 6 broke some insane records over on Steam. It had over 740,000, I think it was around 747,000 concurrent players at a single moment, and the Phantom Edition was actually sitting at the top of the sales charts for quite a while. It broke some crazy records on Steam. It beat the Apex Legends Steam launch, and for context, Apex Legends is free to play. And for even more context on that matter, Battlefield 6 is only available on Xbox Series consoles, PlayStation 5, and PC, across obviously, your major storefronts like Steam and Epic Games, meaning that the entire last gen of the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 era was excluded from Battlefield 6's launch, and still Battlefield 6 managed to beat these insane figures. Now, Call of Duty Black Ops 7, which released recently, is on last gen and current gen consoles. So it's a little bit interesting to see just how crazy the Battlefield 6 launch was, considering the fact that it's not including so many players who are still on last gen. Now, from a personal standpoint, I've been a fan of both the Call of Duty and Battlefield franchise. I've played both. Now, I have played more in terms of Call of Duty than I have Battlefield, but I can confidently say both I'm a huge fan of, and personally, I've opted for Battlefield this year because I just feel like it's a better game. I tried both open betas, I have Game Pass, I could always download Black Ops 7, but I've just been significantly more interested in what Battlefield put out this year because it ticked a lot of boxes in terms of what I wanted from a game. And not only that, Battlefield includes large scale and small scale stuff. So if I still want to play Team Deathmatch, I can just open up Battlefield. If I want to play Breakthrough, I can play it on Battlefield. Conquest, it's on Battlefield. I don't really need to download multiple games to get the experiences that I want. It's also got RedSec, which is obviously not to be underestimated in terms of boosting player counts, because a lot of people who have been Warzone fans got bored of Warzone. There's nothing new, nothing exciting, so they looked for an alternative, and Battlefield provided them with a very comparable alternative that just had even better mechanics in terms of the class system, tanks, the circle being a little bit different. It's a very different experience than Warzone, but it somehow delivers something that so many people want, and at the same time there's also the Gauntlet mode, which is part of the free-to-play RedSec experience, which is also something more small scale, meaning that Battlefield has brought in a lot of players in a way that was really interesting. Now, in terms of official figures, basically what we know now is Battlefield 6 is the best-selling shooter game of the year. If you go into the Battlefield 6 page on EA's website, that's the first thing you're gonna see. It's shattered tons of records. It's currently the best-selling game of 2025 so far. It's the best-selling game of the year on both Xbox and PC, and for PC, it's on every storefront. On PlayStation, it's just second to NBA 2K26 in terms of sales. Battlefield 6 also had the biggest launch month in terms of revenue compared to any other game released over the last 3 years. Yes, any other game. So the only game basically to have surpassed Battlefield 6 in this was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 way back in 2022, and it's been a while since that game. Now, previously, we know that the highest selling Battlefield game was Battlefield 1, which released, for context, in 2016. If you never played it or if you just kind of forgot what the release date was, what we know is that Battlefield 1 sold over 15 million copies in its lifetime. So that's a lot of copies. Well, here's the thing. Battlefield 6's sales in October 2025, which is the launch month, surpassed the entire lifetime total sales of Battlefield 1, literally making Battlefield 6 the best-selling game in Battlefield history, and it sold a whopping over 15 million in a month. That is a crazy figure for any game, for any franchise, honestly, and it's crazy. Even former DICE developers are coming back to work at DICE, and we already know that they hired a senior level designer who was a former DICE employee as well, who came back to work on the Battlefield franchise. He's the same person who designed the Siege of Cairo map in Battlefield 6 and a couple of other older Battlefield maps. So obviously this is a pretty crazy moment because it indicates Battlefield outsold Call of Duty for the first time in history. It indicates that the hype for Battlefield actually did follow through, and it's pretty insane to actually consider just how many people have played this game overall. Despite all the problems, despite all the issues, despite any shortcomings and things like that, I would say this has been probably one of the most solid Battlefield launches in terms of actually working. This has been one of the most solid Battlefield launches in terms of player expectations, in terms of hype, in terms of just people actually being excited to play this game. And I'm interested to see what Battlefield 6 is going to do for the future, how it's going to look like over the next couple of seasons, and honestly what this defines for the franchise as a whole, because it could change how Battlefield is perceived, how Battlefield is made. So it's very interesting to see, and I'm curious to know the long-term impacts of these figures on the franchise. But for now, it's definitely really cool to see Battlefield actually getting this much attention. I've been a huge fan of Battlefield. I loved the concept of these open, kind of large-scale war type games, and I felt like personally it was a little bit underrated compared to Call of Duty, because the gameplay loop of Battlefield to me was always more interesting, just because every game can be different, right? You don't actually load into a game and expect it to have the exact same outcome. The way you play, the class system's impact on the game, these sorts of things all contribute very well to the overall feeling of Battlefield, and the air vehicles alone make it a very fun experience. I'm hoping though that Battlefield does not take the annual release path. That would be the biggest mistake for the franchise. We already saw how that negatively impacted Call of Duty, so hopefully they don't take a play from Activision here and do a yearly release, because that would be awful for Battlefield. It just wouldn't work. It doesn't make sense to do that for it. Battlefield games need to be at the very least 2 to 3 years. Any less than that and it's going to be a very, very bad situation for the game, because they need to be supported over a long period of time. Otherwise, you're going to fall into the, well, every game is the same as the last game and it's basically just a DLC type situation, like we saw between Black Ops 6 and Black Ops 7 and Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, of course, the rebooted versions. But anyways, that aside, do let me know in the comments below what you think about all of this, how you're feeling about Battlefield 6, how you're feeling about these sales figures, those sorts of things, what you expect to see for the future of the Battlefield franchise. Leave a like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications set to all so you don't miss out on another upload, and that's all for today, folks.